Welcome to Get Serious. I wanted to dive in and share, again, a bit more behind the scenes on LandPricer and some of the relevant questions that we're going to be determining on the back end using large language model image analysis. There's a lot of complexity to this, as I'm sure you can imagine, but we're trying to arrive at very useful answers on behalf of the user looking to price out their property, and then any relevant offline check-ins that may need to be done upon the completion of the LandPricer review. So I'm trying to do a lot of these kind of mini insights as we anticipate our upcoming launch here. For those of you who aren't aware, you can check out landpricer.ai for all the key updates. I promise I'm going to be sending an email to that list here very shortly. I've just been under the gun, as I'm sure you can imagine, trying to wrap up the product, but we are trying to build the most reliable land pricing tool on the market and still being very efficient. The goal is to get done within 5 to 10 minutes max for any land parcel that you review in the entire US. But again, the primary focus is being reliable in the judgment of the pricing, and any existing solution currently on the market does not fit my company's needs at Serious Land Capital. So we are building a tool for ourselves first and foremost, and won't be satisfied with anything less. I won't release anything that we wouldn't use internally. So that is the North Star and the standard that we are holding ourselves to. So I talked about how we have a more nuanced approach to determining street access and why not all street access is created equal. Next is determining whether the parcel is a flag lot. Like, well, flag lot, that should be super simple. Anybody, when I say a flag lot that's been in the land investing game for, I don't know, longer than 2 or 3 weeks, you can just immediately picture what a flag lot looks like. And for those of you who might not be as familiar, generally that will, to kind of visualize and paint a picture is, just kind of imagine what a flag looks like in your head. And that kind of pole part of the flag is going to be what allows and connects to direct street access for a particular property, usually oriented for a longer driveway, and to get whatever utilities are needed for presumably residential structure farther in the back of the property that widens out, hence the flag portion of the property that allows for some type of structural improvements. So most of the times, flag lots are going to be a bit less desirable than properties with wider street frontage, both for a convenience as well as a cost perspective. Because as you can imagine, if you've done any type of development or even looked into pricing anything out or talked to realtors about this, and costs for installing driveways are pretty significant, or extending power lines or water lines from the street, for instance. So, all of that is going to have to be borne by the buyer of the property. And if you have a pretty substantial, length of driveway just to access your, flag portion, the buildable portion of your lot, who knows? That could be a few hundred feet, several hundred feet. Some could be upwards of, a quarter, half mile. It depends, right? So all of that generally is going to make those type of parcels a bit less desirable compared, again, to properties that have more significant road frontage for the actual property boundary, and allow you to build a lot closer to the street and less cost involved generally. Now, of course, I should just mention, the subdivide that we're doing in Louisiana at the moment, our flag lot is actually going to be the most premier lot, because we've put in all of that effort to install the driveway, to clear, a turnkey setup for an end buyer. So, we invested, probably almost $100,000 into doing that on behalf of the buyer. So we knocked out a ton of that cost for them. So you just kind of have to keep that in mind, what work might have already been done on the property. But in general, if something has not been improved significantly, cleared, again, think about that too. Like, I was just assuming, okay, utilities and driveway, but generally you're going to have to clear out a bunch of vegetation if there's been any type of overgrowth or dense trees and so forth. So that's going to cost even more compared to a property that you can build closer to the street. All that to say, that is why it is a key question that we're trying to determine within our LandPricer analysis, because, again, on average, flag lots are going to be less valuable. So we need to take that into account for pricing. Now, again, most people, if you're just looking at an aerial, if you've been in the land game for any length of time, you can usually determine what's a flag lot. Surprisingly, this was a tougher question for the image analysis to determine. There are a lot of edge cases. I had to rework this prompt a lot because you're trying to teach software how to determine what is truly a flag lot and what is not. It is far, far more complex than you might imagine, because, you know, even though we have that, standard flag image in our mind, there's potentially a lot of edge cases, right? So where the model was initially getting tripped up, it's like, okay, maybe I have a bit more substantial road frontage for the first third of a property close to the street, but then it narrows a bit and then it widens out again in the back of the property, so it almost looks like an hourglass. Sometimes, land can come in all shapes and sizes, right? And so the model would determine, oh, well, this is a flag lot, right? Because it narrows there and then you got a wider part in the back. No, you need to restrict that determination because that wider part near the street could potentially be built on. And so then it's like not actually a true flag lot because you're not restricted by the middle of the property that is too narrow to build on. So that is, like an example of what could kind of trip up the model when we were initially looking at it. So there were a whole bunch of examples like that. That had to just we had to improve the math and restrict the model a lot more in order to figure out, okay, only consider flag lots to be those where like you can't build within that narrow portion, the pole portion of the property. Otherwise, it shouldn't be considered a flag lot. So I don't want to get too technical here. It's just to mention, okay, this is trickier on the back end for the model to determine, but we worked at it hour after hour after hour to get it to that 95% plus accuracy rate for determining what a true flag lot is. So you don't need to do that as a user of LandPricer. It'll all be done after you input the information about your particular property. So I just wanted to mention, again, a little bit more on our logic about how we're designing the product here and why that is precisely being determined here. So hopefully this is helpful and interesting to you. Again, if you want to sign up for LandPricer, just check it out, landpricer.ai, coming out here ASAP. I know we've been endlessly delayed. That's my fault as a software business operator. Substantially different than a funding business, but learning every day, right? So we will get that out to you here shortly. And then if you're looking for any funding, seriousland.capital for any of your vacant land funding needs. And then Land Daily Diligence Facebook group. Subscribe and share. Looking forward to chatting with you all next time. Take care now. Bye.